Hi, my name is Dave. Today we're going to talk about mythical Unitron telescopes, sometimes referred to as unicorns. These telescopes may or may not exist. They may only exist in people's imaginations. Not sure. Some of them have some evidence for their actual existence, like this one. This one sort of is the real deal. It's a Unitron RF80, at least that's the label I've printed and pasted on here. It's actually this. It's an Orion, but I'm sure it's exactly the same scope. There's no question. It came out around the same time, sold by Orion, imported by Orion, and put their name on it. Here's an ad from another catalog for a very rare telescope, the Unitron RF75. Here's another catalog image, along with a picture of the real deal. Apparently, these were also semi-apos. This is a book called All About Telescopes. It's not the famous Sam Brown book that we're familiar with in the United States. This is an annual compendium of telescopes from a given year. This particular year is 1985. Inside the book, you'll find all kinds of information. It's basically a catalog of catalog entries. It's not absolutely comprehensive. It doesn't have absolutely everything. But it's got at least the major makers and the major sellers of telescopes. It's got their probably leading brands. And I was looking at this the other day and I stumbled across this. This is a Unitron. On the next page, another Unitron. The interesting thing about these Unitrons is that, as far as I know, they don't exist. Now here's one that does exist. I've actually owned one of these. It's got a different name. I called it a 131C. It's a 75 millimeter folded refractor. Quite a nice little scope. This one over here, this is a 5-inch flourite apo refractor. How do you like that? This is a 4-inch flourite apo refractor with the Unitron name on it. It's on a fairly standard Unitron mount. I believe that's the same mount they use for their large 4-inch equatorials. So there you have something that's quite unusual. Does this scope actually exist? I don't think so. Maybe in Japan, maybe there was a prototype, but I think these telescopes were aspirational. I don't think they were ever really made. Here's some interesting information on these scopes translated from the Japanese. It looks like these are both f8 telescopes and both apparently uncoated fluorite lenses. There was a lot of issue with coating fluorite lenses back in those days. So that's kind of interesting. The Unitron 4-inch might have looked something like this Brandon 94 millimeter triplet by Roland Christen. Wonderful telescope. Real telescope, and it really came on a Unitron mount. The Unitron 5-inch might have looked something like this mock-up I made. I used a Meade 127 ED Apo on a Unitron 4-inch mount. A pretty big telescope for that mount, but that's maybe what the Unitron 5-inch would have looked like. Just for fun, I decided to make some other unique telescopes, and I've got my own brand for them. I call them unicorn telescopes. They're not Unitrons, that's for sure. The first unicorn scope is a 4-inch f10. This is a standard achromat made with a Celestron OTA. I slapped a nice finder on there and a guide scope just for fun. Here's what it looks like on a Unitron. I believe this is a Unitron 3-inch mount. Notice that I got a kind of a step-down tube there. Let me show you how that's made. Okay, let me show you how I made that scope. First of all, you start with a Celestron 4-inch f10. It's actually 102 millimeter f9.8. Anyway, it's a nice little utilitarian kind of a scope. Decent optics, but it is of course an achromat. You pull off the objective. Here's the objective and the lens cell. And of course there's some screws inside there that I've already removed. Take this and throw it away, or do something with it. Now you've got the objective. You have to make a tube to fit that. A little short piece of, it's about 4-inch tube. So you got a nice little piece of tube there. And then you need the rest. This is basically a 3-inch tube. It's a tube from a 3-inch Unitron. It's not actually an original Unitron. It's a leftover tube I had. And then you have to make this adapter. The adapter is trickier than you might think. You can't just take a plate and cut it, and it's not going to work like that. You have to maintain the linearity of the tube. Put the adapter on like so. This goes on like so, and there's some screws to hold all that. Okay, and then this goes on here. So now you have a 4-inch f10, basically, that will sit on a 3-inch Unitron mount. The next unicorn I made was another step-down telescope. This is a Meade 80mm f10 on a Unitron 60mm mount. Let's have a look at some more pages here. In the back is a slightly denser catalog. All kinds of data on these scopes. In the middle, they'll usually have some how-to and some reviews. Very interesting sometimes. You have to work through a translation program, but there are very interesting comments here. Lots and lots of detail. Let's take a look and see if there are any more impossible telescopes in here. Wow, guess what? This happened to fall open. This one. Look at that. That is a Unitron 65mm on an equatorial mount. Well, those in fact are very, very rare, but they do exist. Here are some pictures of a genuine 65mm Unitron. Apparently they would squeeze a 65mm objective into the standard tube so it would work with standard Unitron mounts. I hope you've enjoyed having a look at interesting and unusual and rare and maybe non-existent Unitron telescopes. Thank you for watching.